We are looking to enhance the Wordle project from the Vybyte Python curriculum available at www.vybyte.in. Previously, we created this virtual keyboard which we could use to, enter letters and words into our game. Now, it turns out that in fact, we can use this virtual keyboard to also give information about the different letters, much like what we are doing here. In fact, what we'll do in this video, we'll kind of make this somewhat redundant, but nonetheless, it's quite interesting. So let's just start with this. Let's say I try my word party. Now you notice that, in this word, whatever the word is, P, A, T, and Y are not present. R is present in the right location. It obviously gets highlighted here, but we also notice that on the keyboard, I'm getting the correct colors. So R has become green, A, P, T, Y are gray. So this is helpful. Like I said, this kind of supersedes what we have here. But think about it, we could have also colored the labels in a similar manner in this keyboard, in this grid as well, right? But let's say move forward. So I try, for example, music, MUSIC. It turns out that none of them were there. Never mind. I'll try honed, HONED. So it turns out that look, there is O, N, and E in the word, but not in the right position. So I know R is in the correct position. Now, just to illustrate this, you notice now O and E have become yellow. But I just want to illustrate something very interesting. Let's say I try a word R O U, say N and D. Now, notice R has previously been guessed. When I do this, in fact, now R is in a wrong position. However, since I have previously guessed it, on the keyboard, it in fact comes across as green, right? And that's the way even the Wordle game works. I verified this before making this feature. So basically, the point is we will see how we can give colors to these keyboard items so that they reflect the state of the game and they make the game more interesting, more closer to, say, the real Wordle, right? Let's see how we do this. The idea is in fact not hard at all. It's very, very similar to what we were doing for these buttons. Oh, by the way, before I move forward, let me just also highlight that if I take help at this point, remember, help was going to take 3 letters out of unused letters. When I do help, you notice that 3 letters have been removed and they have also been updated in the colors over here, right? So we can build these stuff, yeah. Now to do this, the first and the most important thing that I'm going to do is to place these buttons over here into a list. Now again, remember, this is exactly what we did. We put these labels in a list because the two functions that we're building are actually quite similar to each other. So I'm just going to say, well, kb say btn list dot append say kb btn, right? So I'm basically updating a list all the time. I'm creating them, but obviously I must do a update of this, right? So I must, let's say, btn list as an empty list. So I start with an empty list. As I form these buttons, I keep putting these buttons into a list. Now again, this is a list of tkinter widgets, in this case a button. Again, this is very, very, very similar to, let's say, what we had, for example, this letter labels, right? That was this. So the principle remains almost exactly the same. Basically, what I'm going to do is that, when I analyze the word that has been addressed, depending on what has been put in there, I just go and say, okay, look, let me go and update the configuration for the KB button, for the specific KB button, right? So the way we would do this, in fact, we are going to do something very similar to what we were doing earlier, which is this. So I'll just get this along with me here, and I will just go and say, look, if I find that the particular letter is part of the word, well, I will just go and update this. But of course, I have to be careful. It's no longer letter labels now. In fact, now it's called KBPTN list. Also, what we update is not this. In fact, we just have to find out the index of the guessed word, say KK. The idea is exactly the same. So I'm just finding out where inside, say KK, I'm finding out where in this list letters does this particular letter appear. And once I know that, well, for that particular button, I'm going to make the background as green so that it matches whatever I'm seeing here. In the similar way, I'm going to come in here and, well, I'm going to say, look, if it's a gold, let me first do it here. Let me just convert this to, for example, gold. remember, when I account for repeated letters, sometimes gold may become white. Sorry, may become gray. So I will have to update this once again over here. So I just come in here and I, let's say, update, this as well. So let's make it say gray. Okay, so I think I have to get the indentation correct in this. I messed it up somehow. So yeah, there you go. So I mean, if in case I'm updating the label color, I must also update the button color. And of course, in case the word is letter is not part of the word at all, then definitely it has to be basically it has to be gray. Let's now see this working. So let's say I try my usual, sequence. So say music, music. If I guess this, well, it turns out that I and S are in the word, but they're not in the right position, and hence they have both become yellow. M, U, and C have become, for example, black, right? I can try, for example, party, PARTY. Now, when I look at this, so A is in the right position, nothing else is. A has become green, but there's something interesting here. Let's say I try another word just for illustration's sake. I try adopt. I know, just for, let's say, illustrating something, ADOPT. I know P is not in the word. I know T is also not in there, but just to illustrate something, you notice something interesting. Now that my A has moved to the wrong position, in fact, this label has become yellow, but remember, we wanted to keep this as green. Now, how do we do this, right? In fact, this is not hard at all. It's kind of like what we were doing for figuring out which letters have been guessed when we gave the hint. So something similar I'm going to do. I am going to keep track of the, let's say, the green letters by just creating a new list called, say, green letters, and let it be empty. So by green letters, I mean that those letters that have been decidedly told as green, right? So now the moment I get a correct answer, a green, let's say, letter comes in, I am going to put that letter in this list. So green list, let us say dot append, and I'm going to say, well, look, let me put the guessed word, say KK, inside this green list. Now remember, once a letter has been marked as green, it will always remain in the keyboard. I mean, it may look different on this panel here, depending on where we next guess it, but on the virtual keyboard, it must come as green, which means that I'll make a check over here that, look, if this, let's say, guessed word KK is not in, say, green letters. So green letters is the list that is contains all the letters that have been confirmed. Well, if that is the case, then I will update this to become gold, which means that once you enter green letters, you will always remain green. Let's see this in action again. So now when I, play this game, let's be start with my regular sequence. So I try PARTY. So I always try with party, music, and horn because that gives me a good coverage in vowels. Okay, so A and R in the word, but not in the right place. Let me try honed, HONED. Well, okay, no luck there, but let's try music. MUSIC. And that tells me, okay, look, CAR are in the word, but not in the right position, and they have been reflected accordingly over here as well. Um, Let me try cards. I know T and S are not in the word, but anyway, so let me try cards. Let's see what happens. So when I do this, notice, okay, so C is now in the right position. Just to make a point, if I try, for example, PAX, PAC, KS, you notice that now C is in a wrong position, but on the keyboard, C has been guessed once and hence it is now green. So, I know that C has been guessed and that is the right place for C, right? So, that kind of illustrates the idea. Now we just have to complete one more thing over here, which is that, look, when I click help, right now, 3 letters over here got removed, but I must have those 3 also reflected in this part of the keyboard. We can do that quite easily by going to, let's say, the help function. So wherever I do a help here, it's in fact exactly the same. I'm just going to say, look, while we are updating the letter labels, let's do the same thing to the keyboard button list. Say letters dot index x, and config, say bg is equal to gray, because we know that these letters are not there in the word that is chosen, and hence they can be removed. So now when I run this, let's say I try, party. Uh, okay, so I know A and R are there. All right. But let's say I just want to take help. You notice three letters have been removed and they happen to be E, O, and U. So that definitely helps me, right? Obviously, they have been updated here, but now over here also they have been updated. Of course, we can go ahead and solve the game, but this is quite complete now, and I hope this was interesting. What I also want to notice is how we are building this incrementally, because that is the right way to go about it. Build little bit, test it, and then move, because that way the thought process remains quite structured and we are able to make good progress. This way of learning Python is quite unique and quite effective. Look at our website www.ybyte.in, because we have many such activities through which we learn Python programming. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.